So hello, everybody, and welcome to this gathering for the online exhibition opening of Alaska Native Art, Stories of Healing Through Transformation, organized by Tlingit educator and curator Renea Perry. My name is Nat Andrini, and I'm a co-director here at Five Oaks Museum. Thank you all for being here and sharing space with Renea and I and the artists that she will be introducing shortly. As I mentioned, we are recording tonight's program. Feel free to use the chat throughout the talk, and you can use it for questions throughout, and we'll try to make sure we have some room for community discussion at the end. On this Veterans Day, I want to convey my respect, appreciation, and love for the folks, friends, and fam, past and present, who are active, inactive, been discharged or retired from the military, especially the Indigenous soldiers and veterans who serve or have fought for colonial militaries, whose respect and acknowledgement is often excluded from dominant narratives in settler circles. And personally, I would like to take a brief moment to hold a light for my great-grandfather, Roy Dufresne, who is of Algonquin, Anishinaabe, and French-Canadian descent. Roy fought in both world wars, then single-handedly raised his two daughters and one son until he was 58 years old. Unfortunately, like so many veterans before and after him, Roy took his own life in April of 1957. So to the veterans out there today, we see you and we love you. As we begin this event, we encourage you to stay in your body and connect with your breath. Our bodies are part of the land and ecosystems of the earth. Five Oaks Museum rests within a valley bounded by mountains and shaped by a slow-moving river. The river bends and curves and loops around. The river does not hurry, yet the river persists. Within this valley are also wetlands, oak trees, and all the bodies and creatures that have always lived here. This is Kalapuyan land. Since time immemorial, Kalapuyan knowledge and lifeways have embodied the truths that this land holds. Native people have always been here, are still here, and will always be here. The museum, our collection, and the building that houses them were created by and for settlers and their belongings. For those of us who are guests on this land, we acknowledge that the harms of settler colonialism and extractive modes of taking are legacies which our work must account for and reckon with as we seek to enact justice. The Five Oaks site, the physical site where our namesake comes from, is a grove of historic oak trees situated near the museum that has been a gathering place for over 500 years. The site holds the complex and intersectional sense of place and community identity that our work aspires to. We honor all of these things with our presence here at this time with our shared work at Five Oaks Museum. Now I'd like to introduce Renea Perry, the host of tonight's program. Renea is a Portland-based Native community advocate for transformative justice and Indigenous civil rights with a focus on writing, research, and education. Tonight's artist talk has been organized in conjunction with a beautiful exhibition curated by Renea in the museum's community gallery, a learning space by and for educators and students. We will share a link to the exhibition momentarily. In addition, Renea will be teaching a new course called Introduction to Alaska Native Studies at Portland Community College this winter. The course is the first of its kind in Native Studies curricula in regional academic institutions outside of Alaska. We're super excited. Can I please audit this course? So with that, I turn over this platform to Renea and the artists. Thanks so much for being here.
Nat, thank you so much, and thank you to Five Oaks Museum. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. This is a very exciting exhibition and conversation that we're fortunate to have amazing artists with us this evening. And so I'd like to start by a small introduction and then let folks introduce themselves. So the exhibition, which is online in the Five Oaks Community Gallery, is, oops, is is highlighted.
We can't hear you.
There, can you hear me now?
Oh my gosh. Hi, Holly.
Hi, guys. So sorry I'm late.
No worries. We're glad you're here. You dismissed my rambling with mute on. Don't worry. Welcome.
I'm in the car and trusting somebody else to drive me.
Oh, goodness. Well, you're live. We're live right now.
Okay.
So I'm just about to give a small introduction to each of you and then let you introduce yourself. And then I have some prompt questions. And then if folks, as we're chatting, if folks have any other questions, if you want to put them in the chat, I can ask them to the artist, and we'll just have a really lovely conversation. So I'm very happy to have with us 4 amazing Alaska Native artists. We have James Johnson, who is a Tlingit artist, Terresa White, who is Yupik, Drew Michael, who is Yupik and Inupiat, and also very happy to have Holly Nordlum coming in from Alaska, Inuit and Inupiat. So I will maybe perhaps James, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll just kind of go through and chat a little bit, and then one by one introduce yourself, and then I'll just start with the questions.
All right. Anish ka yuhat dusak Tlingit Renea Daklawadi Ayahat Ish Husnu Kwan Yasati Gunas Chish. Yeah, my name is James Johnson. I'm Tlingit Indian from Southeast Alaska. I belong to the Daklawadi clan, which is the killer whale clan, and I'm an artist and carver.
Thank you. Good night, Sheesh. Holly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Mititquq, I'm Holly Nordlum. I'm originally from Kotzebue. I'm an Inuit and Inupiaq artist and traditional tattooer. And I've been doing some film and public artworks. But that's who I am.
Great. Thank you for being with us. Teresa?
Shemai, hello. My name is Terresa White. I'm Yupik and French Canadian, and I live in Portland, Oregon now. My family's from Bethel originally, on my mom's side, and then my great grandma moved from Bethel up to McGrath, my great grandma, and Helen Koenig, and my granny Clara McAtee was born in McGrath, Alaska, and my mom Louise White was born in Fairbanks. My dad is Steve White. He's French Canadian on both his parents' side, and he was born in California.
Thank you. And Drew?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I had to unmute, figure that out. Just kidding. I'm Drew Michael. I'm from Alaska, born in Bethel, raised in Eagle River. I'm Yupik and Inupiaq and half Polish. I'm a mask maker, well, really a sculpting artist. If you want to add some fashion, stone, glass, and wood to the mix, but I'm mainly a mask maker, Yupik style, inspired from Alaska. And hello.
Thank you. And again, I'm Renea Perry. I am a Tlingit from the Raven House, Raven Moody, Kiksadi House from Sitka. My family's from Sitka and Juneau, and also my family's Inupiaq from White Mountain. And I'm also North European, Norwegian, and Scottish. And I live here. I'm a tribal citizen guest resident in Kalapuya and Chinook lands in what is Portland. And just very excited to be here with all of you. Thank you so much. Well, let's start off with you each gave a little bit of about the type of work that you do. What would you like people to know about being Alaska Native and your specific kinship affiliation? So like there's Alaska Native as like the big umbrella, but then there's, you know, there's over 227 tribes in Alaska. And so, you know, how is that to kind of be in these multiple places, I guess? And so Drew, I see you, maybe you can start.
Me? No,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. I'm thinking a lot about the two places. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of been throughout my whole life, living in two spaces. I'm not physically in Alaska right now, but my people, my blood is from Bethel, and I was adopted out and raised in Eagle River. So yeah, there's an interesting connection to being Native. I think I didn't have any concept because I was growing up in a white home in a majority. The majority of the community in Eagle River was white. I mean, maybe there were pockets of other peoples, but I don't know. If I went to the village, I felt never Native enough, and I called the half breed. And then you go to the village or the city, and you're never white enough. And so then I had the whole game of trying to, you know, kind of internalize that oppression and kind of live in this weird world. I picked and choose who I was at any particular moment, depending on who I was with. And I had to learn how to accept all of that. Like my native Yupik and Inupiaq blood, that rich blood, but then also the other half, which is Polish. And I realized growing up that yeah, a lot of people didn't know what to do with me, but I realized that I am who I am. Shirley Caesar, thank you. No, but I am who I am, and I'm not valued less than anybody else, and I wanted to be a role model. And so that's kind of how when I started to look into the mask, into that identity, just by taking a carving class with my father, that opened my eyes. I looked through that mask and I found more perspective of who I was and my own personal identity. And then that whole reconciliation of all the trauma, I had to go through that and accept it. Yeah, anyway, I don't know if I answered the question in a way that makes sense, but I'm just thinking about like how I've had to live it and be it and accept it. And yeah, I am who I am, just like we all are who we are. And now people come to me as young people when I travel and they say, thank you. And I've had young people in the village ask me, how do you come out as gay? Or how do you know if you're gay? There's like so many questions, you know, like, so being a role model, accepting self, I had to go through that whole process. So I don't know. Sorry, I'll let somebody else speak. There's my answer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Teresa.
I was just getting ready to thank Drew in the chat. So thank you, Drew. I can really relate to a lot of the things that you said. I grew up in rural Oregon in a little enclave, a family enclave with my granny and aunties and cousins, and grew up knowing I was Yupik, but really not knowing necessarily what that meant. It was rural Oregon. Everyone else was, I mean, it was a white town. And I had some inklings, but I discovered when I moved away, when I was 18 and moved away from that, how different I was. That when I was in the town, I was very much like my family, you know, I was part of like what we were, whenever that was. But when I moved away, I realized, oh my goodness, there are, you know, I moved to Portland, nobody here thinks like me. Where are the people who think like me? I guess that's just a family thing. Well, as I aged, you know, and met more people and really became involved in the urban native community here, I discovered, oh, I do have people. I have a lot of people here, Alaskan natives and other American Indian people from the lower 48 and Alaska. But anyway, so I have like just so many years. I feel like I grew up wanting to look like my granny. If I could look like her, have brown skin and black hair like my brother, and I could like be gorgeous like all of them, then I'd be more native. I'd be more Yupik. I'd be more Eskimo, because that's the word my family used. So I spent a lot of time dealing with that identity, those identity questions. And I think that like the question, I think that what you asked about was, what is it like to be Alaska Native here? Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So I guess I'll just say, for me, it means so many different things, and like it depends on who I'm with. But I would say overarchingly, it means, it always means for me, sort of embracing mystery, because that's how my family kind of approached the world. Very careful with our minds and with each other's minds, and not feeling like I don't feel like I have to know everything right this second. I feel like I will learn things as I experience things in the world, and so I don't feel in a very big hurry. And I feel like that's different than other people that I meet. A lot of the ways that I came to know who I am was in my differences from other people. But anyway, means I'm an auntie and a role model, and I'm, I pay attention to and take care of my elders, and I try to be in community, and I understand sharing and reciprocity. There's a lot of things, but I think we'll stop there. Let other people have a chance to speak too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Holly?
I knew you were going to come to me next.
Did
I was like, ah, shucks. The question was if I wanted people to know about Alaska, what I wanted them to know about being Native in Alaska.
In Alaska, or when you're outside of Alaska?
Yeah, I think something I'm coming to terms with as far as identity and sharing is knowing that I don't have to share if I don't want to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to always give it away for free all the time. I don't have to overshare or explain everything. I can tell them to Google it.
Oops, did we lose Holly? I think we did. All right, she'll be back. James, do you want to go ahead, and we'll wait for Holly. We'll jump back.
Yeah, I'm like intrigued by her like mobile
I know.
interview. But born and raised in Juneau, Alaska. My family lineage is rooted in Inupiaq, which is Angoon, Alaska. My grandfathers were all chiefs of the clan, Daklawedi chiefs, and so my path, I think, to become who I am was laid before me, and it was there. And for me, it took finding the art form to put me onto that path that I was meant to be on. Born and raised in Alaska, I moved from Alaska to Arizona to take the art form somewhere I hasn't gone before, in a rich art community like the Southwest. Sharing Northwest Coast art in the Southwest is really unique and beneficial for me. But my Tlingit name is N.Euro, which means it was given to me by my grandfather, and that means man who stands alone strong. And so me being in the Southwest, I'm down there by myself, doing what I do. The only other Tlingit I know is Martin Sensmeyer, the actor. He lives in Phoenix, and so like it's just us two, really, within our culture. But it's important. You carry your ancestors' weight on your shoulders, no matter where you are and what you're doing. You're carrying them with you. And so doesn't matter if I'm in Alaska or outside of Alaska, you're proud of who you are and proud of your identity. And yeah, I have a 9-year-old son, Elias. He's Tlingit, and I'm teaching him that too. Be proud of who you are. And this is, it's proud. You're proud to be Tlingit. You're proud to be who you are, never ashamed. You always keep your head up. So.
Yeah, thank you. For me, my mom grew up in Alaska in Sitka and Juneau and also Bellingham, Washington. So I grew up hearing about Sitka and Juneau and all the aunties and uncles and salmon and all the good foods. I grew up down south in the deep south. And so, you know, knowing that you're Alaska Native and being so far away and not really sure because you're totally out of context for someone, you know, in my situation, and then coming home, it really has been a coming home to culture and so much love and my role in community is auntie and all kinds of things, and to, you know, I don't have time to get into the traditional art and you know, making art yet, but I'm going to have time soon, so I'll be calling on you all for some tutoring, which I'm very excited about. So I'm living kind of vicariously through your artwork right now. I'm just so happy to be here chatting with you. Well, how do you think that, why do you use the mediums that you do, and how do you think that that the stories that you want to tell come through in your artwork? Like, where do the stories of your work come from, and how do they come through the work, and is it through the medium, and then why that medium? James, do you want to?
Oh, I'll kick it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's man, the art form, man, to be a Tlingit, I mean, there's no word for art in our language, you know, and so like traditionally you're a Tlingit carver for your clan, and all the pieces that you see, there's the katia, the totem pole, the clan house, the mass, the paddles, all these things are completely a part of our culture and our identity as people. And there's no written history for our people. It was an oral history that was passed down from generation to generation. And the art form was a really integral part in preserving that story and that history of saying, this is where we came from, this is who we are. So it's seamless within the art form. And I work in our traditional mediums, you know, our people were extraordinary woodworkers working with cedar, red cedar, yellow cedar, and highly skilled woodworkers with sculpture, painting, incredible. And so, yeah, it's seamless when you look at how you tell a story through the art. That's the exact purpose of it. You're carrying that forward. And this art form that I do, it's thousands of years old that my ancestors created. And you're carrying, to be an artist takes a lot of effort and a lot of studying and a lot of work to get to that point where you're like you're a culture bearer and you're carrying that through your lifetime, then pass it on to the next generation. That's like my background here. I'm in Port Townsend, Washington, at the School of Woodworking in Port Townsend, teaching Tlingit paddle carving right now. And tomorrow is our last day, but we've been going through the week of passing on my knowledge onto the students. I have 10 students I'm teaching, and it's been an incredible process watching them learn and understand and respect the art form. So.
Thank you. Teresa?
Well, so about the medium, I sculpt in clay and started sculpting in water-based clay. Now do water-based clay for my masks and wall hanging, sculptural wall hangings, and then use a plastiline clay for my bronze pieces, for mostly the pieces in the round, the sculptures in the round. And I started using that medium because my cousin is a sculptor. My cousin Troy Koenig Wilcox, and he went to school for art, and I knew he knew some things about it, and I just wanted to get my hands dirty one weekend when I went to the beach and asked him if he could hook me up with some clay. So that is why I started started sculpting. I'm 53 now, and I started sculpting when I was 40. So I'm almost 53. So it's been a little bit, but not too long, really. But I do love clay. I love water-based clay. And thinking about, so Yupik, in Yupik culture, we have masks that, you know, tell stories and they're used in dancing. And I've always loved, since the first time I saw Yupik masks, I've been just enthralled with them. And mine are not for dancing. I haven't made any to be used in a dance, but I love that. And so I'm very inspired by Yupik masks. And actually the first piece that I ever sculpted in bronze, it's right, I've got one of the editions right here behind me. I don't know if you can see it, it's probably too far back, but it's a walrus dancer, and it was actually inspired by the first time I saw and experienced Yupik dance, or Eskimo dancing, which was in Monmouth, Oregon, in a field. So weird, but the Northwest Inupiaq dancers were there through some program, and I just like was out in the field and watched Larry Avakana. Some of you probably know Larry, and Othniel Umata, and saw them dancing and was really just absolutely blown away by the walrus mask. So about stories, I gather stories from my experience, stories from the experience of my families, and stories from mom. Really, I think the stories about my values and my Yupik values come through. Also, I will just say real quick, and then I'll pass it along, but I just love this book. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is Anne Fina Riordan, for The Living Tradition of Yupik Masks. I just look at this book like all the time. I still do. I've had it for a long time, and I just look at it all the time because there are a lot of really great stories and a lot of historic masks there, and I encourage people to check it out. And I'll put the title in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Drew.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, you guys. So can I show you something really quick connected to that book you just shared? So that exhibition is also important to me. Check that out.
Oh, wow.
That's the show poster from the Anchorage Museum from 1996 when they opened it up in October. Isn't that amazing?
Love it.
I was curating at the Anchorage Museum.
That's awesome. Thank you. So cool.
I had to share it. Okay. Well, okay, what was the thing? Why the medium? The medium. I mostly work in wood. I started in wood really because of my mother. In 1997, my mother made my dad take me to a carving class at the University of Anchorage, Alaska, with Joe Sinungatuk, who's an Inupiaq carver. And I guess I didn't choose the medium or the art form, it chose me. And it helped me understand and look into my identity, not understand all the way, but look into my identity. And that was the beginning, kind of the beginning of the process. And I've experimented. I've never wanted to stay. I remember starting out and being so afraid of doing it right or doing it wrong, or all the things that you could, imagine that you didn't want to do, or, I didn't want to offend anyone. So I was very afraid. So I did look through that, our way of making prayer book, it was like my Bible. And I went around to all these places. I looked up the sources of where those things were, those masks and items. And I went all around and I looked for them. And I think I've been able to see almost all of them all over. They're everywhere. But yeah, it's been a journey and then every time I try to walk away from masks, the universe is so powerful and slaps me over the face. Real hard. I cannot walk away. Every time I do it, there is something powerful that happens, and I am reminded, you are here to, I asked my birth mother once, do we have healers in our family? Because I feel like there's this thing happening with these masks, and like I'm supposed to be doing this thing and helping people transform through energy and connectivity, through, you know, and my birth mother was like, no, we don't really have it. And I'm like, what? So I felt like the ancestors in our world they've given us things that we can do, and they've given us the ability to see in certain ways and have these talents. And I'm thankful that they've given me the opportunity to be a mask maker, and it's taken me around the world and helped so many things transform. And I never thought I'd live out a mask in all the different ways you could. I mean, not all of them. I don't want to. I've lived out so many different versions of what a mask can be. And I'm very careful now of what I create, because if I create a piece that connects to something, you know, a little twisted or off or interesting inside of who I am or how I see the world, that can manifest and become more. And anyway, so it's like ingrained in who I am now, and I don't think I could ever walk away, is what I'm saying. It chose me. So if that answers your question.
Sure, thank you. Holly, welcome back. Thank you. If you want to pick up where you left off, just talking about whatever you want to say about, you know, being Alaska Native or being Inuit or Inupiaq. And then the other question we're talking about is, you know, how identities and the stories come through in your art, in your work, and why you choose the medium that you do.
Okay.
I
What
know
was I
that's a
saying?
lot.
Yeah, I was sorry. My phone died. I'm just one silly thing after the other today, but I was saying about not having to share all the time and not giving it away all the time. That's something I'm working on now, is just like being guarded. And I think that's okay, that we don't have to. I mean, what's the purpose of oversharing with other people? I always think, like, or sharing our culture with other people. What are they gonna do with it? So yeah, I'm not a big sharer with other people now. However, with our own people, I'm sharing all the time. And with tattooing and what that means. And yeah, the medium, I really let the idea decide the medium for me. I'm not much of a painter, but I can paint if it's appropriate. And I'm not much of a sculptor, but I can and I think, Teresa, you do some of that kind of work, and so does Drew. So it's just letting, you know, being open to whatever comes along for me and medium. And then of course that ties right into our identity. And I always say that having that connection back to my community, Mititquq and Kotzebue, it's such a freeing thing for me. Like, I don't think of it as a burden. I think of it as a freedom to just always think of my community and not just of me and my work. And that takes the pressure off, because there's never even a question about what to do, because if it benefits my community, then I'll do it. And if it doesn't, I won't. So just being honest about that and picking things carefully. But
Yeah, thank you. I think that in our communities, this practice of refusal is also a part of our ways of being and knowing, being discerning about timing and which information and, you know, to share and how to participate. Yeah, so thank you for that. Appreciate that. So I know that in your all of your works, I see the thread there, and you also talk about transformation. Do you want to say anything about transformation in your work, Holly, while we have you on screen?
Sure. I think though, well, I do traditional tattooing, and that's such a good example of transformation and what it can do to a person and their spirit in celebration. And look at you guys with your tavlaguns. So you can probably speak to that as well, what that does for you, because it's an ever-changing thing, right? Like what it meant to me in the beginning has changed to now. Like how I walk around the world now has even changed. But yeah, the transformation, I always say that transformation is not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be painful, and that you have to enjoy it to really make a change. Because that's what it is. A transformation is a change. And it's not easy to change. But yeah, it's supposed to hurt a little bit. That's the healing part of it.
Yeah, just to get us back in our bodies, I think, just that, you know, to have the feeling to be connected. Yeah, thank you. Teresa? Thanks, Holly.
Yeah, thank you. I would say transformation oftentimes in my work is about being able to see clearly. And I've heard that in olden days, when the Earth's crust was thinner, that's what I've read in stories, that we humans and animal people used to be able to trade places more easily. And there was just more movement between realms. And for me, the idea of transforming has to do with being able to take on another perspective, and really similar to what you said, Holly, about contributing to community and improving community, taking on a perspective that is new to me and will help me, will benefit other people. Well, I mean, it sounds so corny to say make me a better person. It's not just that. It's having new understandings, knowing where to turn next, knowing what paths to go down, knowing what to contribute to, knowing where to hold back. A lot of different ways of understanding how I connect in the world and how we all are connected. And so like in a lot of my masks, you'll see that, or also in my other sculptures, that there's an animal person and a human person in the same mask. And some people have said, is this a human person becoming an animal, or is this an owl becoming a person? And I don't really think of it like that usually. It's not very clear cut. It's more about sharing and communicating and connecting. Basically, it's about being able to share understandings and being connected with the land, and being connected and considerate of the animals that I consume and that are harvested on my behalf. And yeah, it's, for me, transformation is really about connection and then insight and seeing clearly. Thanks.
Thank you. Drew, what would you like to say about transformation?
Wow, I'm loving listening to you guys. It's so fun to hear how transformation is in your life and in your work. Yeah, I don't know, masks, like I said earlier, are transformative. I think that transformative energy and process comes out in my work because I feel like I've transformed. I feel like I've lived many lives, you know, like I was a Christian, I was straight, I was gay, I was this and that, you know, all the things you could ever be. I feel like every time I went through something in my life, there was some art that came out. I mean, when I started doing mask making and I think by looking through the eyes of a mask, I mean, just the idea of what a mask is, it's something that covers your face, covers your identity, right? And then you become this other entity when you put that on. You become that, you live it, and you embody that. And when masks were worn, you could see, like you're saying, Teresa, you could see into another realm, another world, another way. And when I put this in these concepts of transformation, I'm not really talking about the physical transformation, even though it might be that kind of form sometimes represented, because the transformation is about the transformation in there, and connection, right? It's inside. It's not about, I mean, when Yupik people or Inupiaq people or a lot of cultures would take a mask, they would put it into a fire, and there really would be a physical transformation, or it would be put into the earth, or they give them to kids to play with, or they'd put them in a grave in a cave. You know, I mean, there's so many different ways you could put them in a tree, put them on a great above ground burial. There are so many ways to have transformation physically for these forms. Put them in the water, all the elements, you know. But I really like to try to talk about that internal process of transformation, and it is connected to a way of being. And I'm learning more and more all the time about what it means to be Yupik. It's a different way, a perspective, a different worldview than so many of the worldviews. It's a special place, and I think our cultures are connected to that place. Anyway, it's interesting to think about how beautiful the Yupik and Inupiaq cultures are, and how transformation was shared. You know, and that's what I try to share, so we can find balance and connectivity and hopefully build. I mean, we're in the age of seeing humanity and building opportunity, and I hope that can resonate through my work. And that has been the goal the whole time.
Awesome, thank you. James, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, all these answers are, man, incredible. It's like we're not talking about art at all. We're talking about life, and that's like really, really powerful. I guess like transformation, like, you know, life is like dynamic and it's always moving, and like you're always adapting and always adjusting. For me as an artist, like I look back at the work of our ancestors and look back at the old pieces and look back at the old artists. And like, the more I look back, the more it like transforms me into, man, you get it's like a stronger and stronger connection starts taking place within you with what you're doing, like with what you're creating. And yeah, that's like kind of, for me personally, like you look at that, that's the transformation that's happening right now for me, is going through that process of feeling this really strong connection to my ancestors, my family, and my lineage. So
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you.
everyone else, all those answers are really incredible that everyone spoke about. That was really, really beautiful to hear.
Thank you. Well, I would like to invite you all to ask each other a question. I'll give you a minute to think about that. And to talk about maybe while you're thinking about that, also I'd like to invite our participants here with us to maybe put a question in the chat that you have that we can weave in here. And also for Nat, if you have a question for our panelists. But I think that this conversation, you know, we're getting at ways of healing ourselves and healing our families and communities, and healing the land that we're from, that we come from, and the land that we're on, where we are, by finding our way back to being human, according to our cultures. Yeah, so thank you. Nat, did you have a question for our panelists? And then folks, you can put a question in the chat that we can ask.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Renee. I'm curious how all of the artists, and you just touched on it a moment ago, Renee, if you could just speak a little bit about your relationship with the land, not as an abstract, obviously, not as an abstract concept, but those of you especially who are away from Alaska and living in different places, and where you draw inspiration from in the land. Just any comments around that would be really inspiring. Thanks.
So whoever would like to speak, you can just jump in.
Well, I will say, Nat, thank you so much for your introduction and your land acknowledgement. Oh, there you are. Now I see your face up there. I just thought it was so beautiful the way you brought me into my spirit into a place of remembering the land. Like I never hear land acknowledgements that make me think about land, hardly ever. And I really appreciate your conversation around the water, the trees, that like you really brought me right in. So thanks for that. And then I'm not sure how to say, well, I live in the city. I also wish that I could see the skyline. There's one place out at the very end of the driveway where it connects to the road where I can go stand there like early in the morning and see just for a second, like a little tiny space where the sun's gonna go up and through there. It's a constant challenge to be connected to land. And I'm really lucky. I live in the numbers in Portland, so I'm really in the middle of the city. I'm in the city, you know, but I have a backyard and a front yard. And so like this morning I was up early, I went outside in the rain, and James, like you, I wanted to hear the rain. So I went to the patio, sat on the patio, got to see and connect with the little hummingbirds that came really close to me and wonder about where they're living around the corner, and video a slug making its way across my table to my teacup. I guess it's just like literally taking moments out of my day. Last night I was having a shit day yesterday, so I went in the backyard and built a fire and sat in the rain and watched the fire burn. And all of those moments help me in my art because they help me be sane. So it's just really just trying, just challenging and making opportunities to get my feet in the dirt and to connect with what's around me.
Awesome, thank you. James or Drew or Holly?
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
like for your sanity, like just, I mean, living in Phoenix, like you're in the desert and it's city and it's hot and everything's happening real fast around you all the time. But coming up here to Washington this week has been really refreshing, and like I'll spend 30 minutes before I come teach just at the beach, just looking at the ocean and hearing the waves break and listening to the sounds and being still. You know, it's like you get so caught up with how fast things are going and responsibilities and family and art and all this stuff. And the land is like, will bring you back to level again. It'll even things out where if you're out of balance, you know, that'll bring things back in balance and you gain a better perspective of what you're doing. And yeah, I'm thankful. I'm happy to be here right now doing this, you know, but it's like you said, it keeps your sanity going and keeps you in balance no matter where you are. You know, Alaska is always home. That's where my heart is, you know. But like so many of the artists here, like you really want something, well, you have to sacrifice something to get it, you know, and it means moving out of your home, you know, to go pursue it. And that's a hard thing to do. So
Thank you. Holly, you were gonna jump in before?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that even though I'm in Alaska, I'm definitely separated from my tribal lands up in Kikik-Duguk, but living in Anchorage is so directly related to the land. It's so nice here. I would have a hard time leaving. So I'm out every day. I don't know, I end up, you know, picking stuff and taking the dogs out and shoveling snow this morning. We got 6 inches, I think, today. So it's lots of snow. Yeah, you know how up here the elements kind of drive everything. So like even driving over here, we had to go super slow and because it was dangerous driving. But I think even that is a reminder where we are and to watch out. Be careful because the elements will get you.
Well, I'm glad you're getting snow up there.
Oh, it's so pretty. It's like big white flakes. It's so pretty. So nice.
Beautiful. Thanks. Drew, did you want to say anything about the land?
The land, I don't know, it's so interesting living in Portland. When I lived in Alaska, I had a house up there, and I lived on the east side, away from downtown, closer to the mountains. I'd be able to sit on the front porch and have my coffee and look at the mountains all morning. But now I'm here in Portland, and we moved into this front apartment downstairs, and then we were like, yay, it's so pretty, we get all this light and we can see this little forest park mountain over here. and then they built this skyscraper or huge condo building right in front of us, and so we don't get any sun. So then we have this whole garden now, so I'm trying to like enjoy nature by having this huge garden now, like 13 rows, but we probably have over 100 plants, like 13 rose bushes, like 8 trees, you know, on and on, flowers, all kinds, cacti, and we have a dog now. I never thought I'd own a dog or have a dog with us. And I mean, I don't feel connected to Alaska, and here I don't feel the weather. I don't feel the beautiful land with all the vegetation and the space and the light or the darkness. I don't feel any of that here. It's a little different over in the city here, but I actually miss it so much. We want to get out of this apartment to get a little bit of a yard, and then our goal is to go back up to Alaska. I found my boyfriend and I'm going up to Alaska. So yeah, I don't know, it's very hard. You can do hikes and stuff, but even down here in the States, in Oregon anyway, it's very hard to get to any kind of campsite or any place you can really be out for a long period of time, you know, unless you're going on a day hike. But that's like, it's crazy how far you have to drive. In Alaska, you can just walk out your back door, you know. So I don't know. It's very different. I miss the drum beat of the land, the weather hitting down on us a certain season, you know, all that. So
We'll have to, Teresa and I will have to get you out on the canoe.
please,
Yeah.
please.
And Holly and James, when you're down, yeah, please, we'll take you out on the canoe with the canoe families. Love to have you and out to harvest, and yeah, we'll make that happen. Well, there is one question here from one of my cohort mates. She says, Erica says, Andrew talked about being a role model. And I wanted to ask, and anyone else who sees their identities as a role model, what is it that you want the next generation to know? Or what is an important message that you would like to give them?
Cool. Well, that's very interesting. When I haven't been teaching for a while because of shutdowns and all the things going on in this world, and then not being in a place where I don't know any buddy. I'm not working with the schools or anything, but when I was teaching, my mantra is I am protecting and activating our culture. And that is something that the universe gave me, our ancestors. As I was walking in to work at the Anchorage Museum on a curated show or something. And I remember walking in and I heard that like a clear voice, and it says, you are to protect and activate your culture. And I was like, what? What was that? Who said that? And I didn't know who said it, and nobody was around. And I remember clear as day. And I asked again, and the universe said it again. And I was like, okay. And I took that to heart. But then I realized that the culture that I carry and that I live out by living out my values, and it's not my culture only, it's our culture. And so I modified that and added onto it in a way that, and so I have this, when I'm teaching, I wear this apron and it says, I am protecting and activating our culture. And that protection is learning the history, learning the riches, all the parts of the history, the sad, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then being able to take those parts and activate them by teaching or doing those things in your life. And that will protect and activate those things, your culture, the way we live, the values that we carry. And that's what I really want our students to know, the gifts that we have as even having these cultures is such a gift. You know, I can't imagine living in a world without the rich cultures that we carry connected to place. So that's what I want to share. Is like, let's learn our history and let's activate it by living out these things that are very important, and they will help us survive and enrich who we are. Yeah.
Thank you. Teresa or James or Holly, did you want to speak to that too? Like, what would you like next generations to know, or what is an important message that you feel that you'd like to share?
I can go ahead. I can
Yeah.
do it.
You can do it.
I can do it. I have a lot of people in for traditional tattoos that are the next generation, and things I always share with them are, to be proud of who you are. I think by wearing traditional tattoos, it kind of grows in you anyway, but being proud of who you are. I always say to use language before it's gone. Learn your language if you can. Create community when you need it. It's important for us to have community and create it, even if it's virtual. Protect yourself. That's what I tell the next generation.
Thanks. Thank you. Teresa, did you want to share?
Yeah, I guess just I will not put that in this question, the answer to this question in my mind in a nutshell, but just a couple things that come to mind, no particular order. I want my nephews and the littles in the community to know they are connected to each other, to know who their ancestors were, to know their values and be able to kind of name it as part of culture. I didn't get the because of boarding school shame and what my granny and aunties brought from Alaska. There wasn't a lot of naming, even though we were displaced. I feel like the naming of things would have helped me a lot while I learned my cultural values from them. They were my culture bearers, and that was everything. That is everything. I think it would be great for my nephews to know, to be able to say, we're Yupik. These are the values this is why I do this. This is why I behave this way. It's because I'm Yupik, and this is what we believe. This is what we do. It's going to change. We do all sorts of things as Yupik people, but there are some things that are our core values. So,
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I think I just passing on knowledge onto the next generation, especially of artists that want to pursue it. Like you look what we're going through now with this pandemic, and I think back when smallpox decimated the Northwest Coast population, where 3/4 of the population died from smallpox. And you think of how many artists that had this knowledge that was passed down for thousands of years died without passing on what they knew and carrying it forward. And so, like, what I do, I mean, I'm sitting here doing it is teaching and sharing what I know onto the next generation of people. And I think that's important, is passing on this knowledge that you have. And your ancestors, they all put this gift in our hands, and like Drew was saying, like, you're carrying that through your lifetime, then when you're done, you hand it off. You hand it off to the next. So that's what I'm doing. That's, we're all living it. We're all doing it right now. So
Thank you. I know in the lower 48, Indigenous folks have a concept of 7 generations ahead. So we're always thinking about impact, but also that handing off of knowledge and tradition. But I know that in Alaska, like an elder told me, and shamefully I can't remember the term for it, but it's more like looking in all directions at once. So we're looking behind, but we're also looking in all the other directions, looking forward. And so I think my little understanding is that, we need to know the past. We need to know our ancestors, our lineage, and the ancestors that are here with us, and how everything we do has a cause and effect, and like how do we manage it all to keep going forward as Native people. And so I feel like personally that because we're thinking in this way, it's like a multidimensional way of being, that it makes it more manageable. Would any of you like to talk about that? Talk about the, like this kind of timelessness, and also the lineage of like, how do you carry it all and pass it on? And you spoke a little bit to it, and I think that comes through in your art too, this like timelessness. We operate in linear time, we can do that, but we're really being in timelessness.
I mean, just kind of art side, like the discussion's always like traditional versus like contemporary, and like where your art kind of lies in that realm. You got both feet in both dimensions, but the timelessness of it is the pieces I'm most drawn to doing are ones that can exist within our culture 1,000 years ago seamlessly. And that's where my heart is. And that's where like I'm drawing a lot of my work is going in that direction. And yeah, that's like the timelessness aspect of it, you know, is doing those traditional pieces that, you know, you look at those pieces and it could fit right into our culture thousands of years ago.
Cool. Anybody else?
I could share a little bit about time, but I don't know about how it relates to my work in some ways. Time is interesting because things happen and then they come back, but it's not like, I don't know, I don't like to think of time as like, that way's future, that way's the past, because it doesn't seem to work that way. There's too much gray in the world or something. Like it I don't know, it's like things come back and you kind of live through them again. And like when I started mask making, I used that, our way of making prayer book. And then when I made these huge masks with my friend Liz, we burned them on the lawn and had a ceremony. We transformed them through fire. But during that time, Anne Finer Reardon, the co-author of that book, she came up to me right after the show, and I had never met her before. I didn't even know what she looked like. And she was like, "Hey, I know you know who I am. My name is Anne Finer Reardon." And I was like I freaked out. But it was interesting because like that ceremony happened again, like almost at the same time, but at a different time. Like, does that make sense? Like thinking about how things come back through themselves. It was like it was another iteration of that. It was like a rebirth, a reliving in another form of that time. And I think images and concepts will come back through people's, yeah, it's interesting. Like even looking at my work sometimes now, I'm like, whoa, I kind of want to redo that one, but it's done. You know, it marks that time, but you know, maybe I'll be able to reiterate it in another form. And, yeah. Anyway, if that makes any sense, I hope I explained that kind of concept and it made sense.
Yeah, I mean, I understood it as like this like time, I don't know, to me, like time is not just like one piece, but in a way it is, it's like a continuum, and it keeps looping through, and it loops through people, you know. And so these pieces of artwork that, you know, for us, our ceremony, the ceremony comes to life again through people as we're creating and putting that out there.
When I was a little kid, I don't know why, I was talking about this yesterday with a family member. When I was a little kid, I used to always think that, and I really wondered, like I felt pretty sure that I was in someone's dream, and that the whole world as I knew it was just some teeny tiny little piece of some very big dream that someone was having. And it just, that used to feel so present for me as a kid. It's really strange, but it kind of relates to how I think about time not being linear. And I don't think of time as linear. I just feel like it's, and I don't know if I can draw, I don't know if I can bring you guys here, but in some of my pieces, I have hands, and then, you know, a hole in the hand, which is the eye of awareness. And through that hole is potentially a portal. The idea of it is a portal to other realms, or back and forth between realms. Maybe it's where the animals move to the realm of the hunter or the person who's harvesting. In that way, I feel like that's kind of an example of how I think about time. And so I think that's in my work a lot, as time is not something that is this way and that way, just like you were saying, like you all have said. It's sort of, it's a mystery to me. I don't think that I understand it. I have responsibilities for what I've learned and what I can learn from my ancestors and what I can carry hopefully toward helping the people who come after me and my family and things. But yeah, that's kind of how I think about time and how it relates to my work.
Awesome. Holly, would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. So I think about time as I'm getting older, running out of time, thinking about what I want to get done, even though that time isn't linear, like Drew said, and we kind of are cycled back around to these issues or happenstances that as you start to run out of time, you start to appreciate those loops, you know, and it does seem very fleeting time. Mm-hmm. But that could be my middle age talking.
Thank you. Well, you know, this exhibition is a companion to the Intro to Alaska Native Studies class that's going to be at Portland Community College. And being in the lower 48 as Alaska Native and even coming through a Indigenous Nation Studies program, they don't, you know, we're part of the acronym. We're either AIAN or NAAN, and we get, you know, our stories get lost in, you know, this conglomeration of Native people. And so, you know, I find myself presenting on Alaska Native anything in this area. And so actually, my friend and mentor Blake Hausman is here, who's the chair of the Native American Studies program at PCC. And so fortunate to be able to start the Intro to Alaska Native Studies there, the studies class. And so what do you think that will be important to convey in a class like this in the lower 48? I mean, Alaska Native people are everywhere. We're everywhere around the world. But what would you like to convey, or what do you think is important to convey in a class like this? Any one of you can jump in.
I think colonization is like pretty much up there. Learn the real history of what happened during the colonization of Alaska. And I think like it's not taught in the school system, and it makes you appreciate, I mean, I'm speaking just for the Southeast Alaska with the Tlingit culture, like during colonization, like everything that could have been done was done to destroy our culture and our way of life. And that's not taught, and people don't know about it. And I'd like to see that more presented more in the education system.
Thank you.
I think too, maybe the NAICSA and the introduction to the way that our system was set up, so that people don't think that we get free anything, you know what I mean? And even the reservation system and IHS, all of it, how that all works, that's an important element to understanding kind of the way we navigate these systems, meant to oppress us, by the way, but how that navigating those systems kind of becomes a big part of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Teresa or Drew, do you have any suggestions?
I agree with teaching colonization, trauma, talking about the real trauma, you know, that like you said, 7 generations, that's a long time to try to work through anything. And you know what, there's so many parts, but yeah, I think talking about colonization but also talking about the true gifts of the cultures and the way of being. I think if we can point to where we can be and, uplift people. I mean, it's so important. Self-discovery and cultural understanding comes first with listening and hearing, the whole story. And I think it is important to not only talk about the painful, but talk about what we want and where we can go. That social justice, the units that families, the cultures were so powerful in, and how, sort of redesigned. But, people are learning about that past and they're able to pick up those pieces. So, yeah. And if people can learn, if you're doing an introduction into Alaska Native Studies, please try to learn people's who they are from, where they're from and their people groups, not just clump everyone into this whole thing. So it's important to be able to honor a person by knowing where they're from and what peoples they come from. So, yeah.
Thank you. Teresa, did you have anything to?
I don't think so. I might have some ideas later.
Okay.
I'll sit with it and pass something along if I think of anything. I think the things that pop into my mind are related to things you've all said. Boarding school, really big one for myself and other Alaskan Natives that are family and friends that I know, the legacy of boarding schools. And I'll also somehow to make sure that people understand that the stories, the colonization, the individual impacts, the impacts to families, individuals within families, whole communities, villages, that I don't know how to say this, but that they're talking about real people, and it's not like if you get a whole group of Alaska Native people together, it's not like one or two of these families will have experienced X, Y, or Z. Most people have experienced a lot of the things, the negative traumas on the list. And yeah, we have to talk about more than trauma, but somehow to make sure that people know that the legacy of trauma is still happening, and that we need to find, because I work in public health and I'm always thinking about policy. I hope that there's something in there about how we can change policies to make things more equitable. So anyway, I could say more later.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. And I mean, being here with you all and being friends and community members with you, and also, helps me to discover more about myself and my Tlingit and my Inupiat identity and my Alaska Native identity, and especially being here in Oregon. But I'm very fortunate to, I'm going to call in a couple of other people, some mentors and role models. I'm fortunate to be in the Oregon State University Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies Master Program that's held in an Indigenous kinship framework, and looking at all the intersections of identity and also naming settler colonialism as the detrimental impact, and disruptions to our gender roles and culture and language and all the things, but also how, I don't want to overuse the word resilient, but how enduring we are, how we are still here, and we are still moving forward and still carrying our lineages forward. And how we're healing ourselves and healing each other. So I do thank you all for being here and for all the beautiful work and your beautiful being in the world, and contributing so much to communities here and where you are and where you travel. I want to ask one more time if anybody else from the audience has any questions. And so I'll turn it back over to the artist if there's anything more you'd like to share. All right then.
Thanks for having us.
Good night, Sheesh. Kayana.
Thank you guys. Good to see you,
Thank-
Teresa, Drew.
Nice to see you too.
Yes. Good to
Mhm.
see you all.
Yeah,
Right.
it's great.
Take care. Be safe.
Great to meet you all. Thanks so much for sharing your time and excellence with the Five Oaks Museum and being in this space and sharing space and just letting it flow. It's just this is my favorite program that we've done in a while. So stoked to be here. And thank you so much, Renee, and to Brandon, who's now on screen. He's a board member of ours. And shout out on Veterans Day to you, Brandon, as well.
Yeah.
Appreciate your support. Beautiful conversations. I feel energized just to move through the world. And it's as a Native person, I don't mean to take up too much space. Just it just makes me feel so good to see people taking their power back and taking their purpose back and being in community with one another. So just really appreciate you all.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And you know, the Five Oaks Museum is supported by community. And so if you feel compelled, donations are welcome and appreciated. So thank you. Thank you again for all being here. And I look forward to connecting with you in person and other ways very soon.